What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we've got our Week 1 fantasy football wide receiver starts and sits for every single matchup, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's kick it off. And we start Week 1 on Thursday with the Ravens at the Chiefs. From a wide receiver perspective here, there's only one name per side that I'm really looking at and that I have faith in. For the Ravens, it's Zay Flowers. I keep on saying this with the Ravens, like they're not a super pass heavy team. It's going to run through Lamar Jackson, his legs, now Derrick Henry, and then Mark Andrews, the tight end position, and then pretty much one other wide receiver. And Zay Flowers is going to be the most kind of reliable one out of the bunch. And I do believe that he will have up and down weeks, kind of like the young, maybe Marquise Brown type of days back in Baltimore. I'm sitting Rashad Bateman as a result. I just don't have enough consistency from him there. I think Zay Flowers is going to be kind of a high upside wide receiver 2 type of play all season long. And then based on the, better matchups, like in this case, a higher scoring affair potentially versus the Chiefs, he will be close to maybe a low-end wide receiver 1, but will be touchdown dependent for the Chiefs. I'm going with Rashee Rice. He escapes legal issues, so now he returns basically as the most experienced wide receiver here of the bunch. And Marquise Brown is hurt, probably not going to be back until at least week 2. You've got the rookie and Xavier Worthy, but I'm not going to force a rookie start here versus the Ravens defense. I think it's going to be Rashee Rice. He's really going to benefit a week or 2 while Marquise Brown is out. And then it'll be really interesting to see what the pecking order will be afterwards. But I trust Rashee Rice a little bit more than I do Zay Flowers. So I like him above Flowers for the week. I just think he has a higher floor considering the offense, considering the quarterback. And then, again, I know Marquise Brown is out, but I would not force a start with Xavier Worthy, the other big name here, Juju Smith-Schuster technically. But, again, I think it's going to be Kelsey. I think it's going to be Pacheco. I think it's going to be Rashee Rice. And afterwards, you're really just begging for trouble if you force one of these other guys. Then Packers at the Eagles. So I will start here for Green Bay, primarily Jaden Reed. I'm looking, from a PPR perspective, who can I trust? Reed falls in that category. The problem with the Packers is, look, they're a good young team. They've got some solid wide receivers. They've got really good depth at the position, but they don't have one guy. They don't have one set and forget name at the wide receiver position. Like all these guys, from Jaden Reed to Christian Watson to Romeo Doubs, I think can be the number 1 for them week in and week out. And that's going to be the tough part here. So for that reason, I'm kind of focusing in on Reed because of my belief that, kind of playing that slot role, and he's going to see the most targets. And when you're dealing with this type of trio, this type of situation, I'm just going to go with the guy with the highest floor. So Packers, I think they'll still be a decently high-scoring offense this year, as long as Jordan Love continues to improve. But I don't see a wide receiver 1 week in and week out here. I could even argue I don't see a high-end wide receiver 2, more so mid-level, low-end wide receivers 2 here all around. And then because of that, I'm fading Christian Watson. I'm fading Romeo Doubs. I think Watson is too boom or bust. If I'm forcing a start between Doubs or Watson, I would go with Doubs. But again, not by much. And then for the Eagles, I'll go with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Get used to that duo. A.J. Brown, obviously the preferred choice. With Devonta Smith, we've seen it since he's been in Philly. It's going to be a lot of up and down games. Yes, he can absolutely blow the game wide open for you, but he can also get 3 catches for 50 yards. So keep that in mind. Brown is the wide receiver 1. Devonta Smith is a volatile wide receiver 2. Then Panthers at the Saints. This one's one I'm excited for from the new addition standpoint of Deontay Johnson. I have him as a start. I think that in this matchup, it could be a little bit quiet. First game things of that nature. We'll see how much Bryce Young goes back to Adam Thielen. We'll see how much the run game is a focus. But I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I think Deontay Johnson is a big wide receiver upgrade compared to what they had last year for Carolina. I have him as a mid to low end wide receiver 2. For the Saints, Chris Olave, to me, is a, on the week, probably a low end wide receiver 1. I think that all the targets are pretty much going to go to Olave, and then probably Alvin Kamara. We'll see how that plays out. The wide receiver 2s here, I'm sitting both respectively. Adam Thielen behind Deontay Johnson. They do some things pretty similarly, like they can be used as slot guys, kind of be peppered with targets, but I think Deontay Johnson being younger, he's got a little bit more versatile of a route tree, bigger downfield threat. I prefer him. Thielen, he was great at points last year, but now that he's not the just only guy in Carolina, I think the age and all those other things will be catching up to him. And then for the Saints, Rashid Shaheed, I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, so I'm not going to force anything. He's also a little bit banged up, so Olave, Kamara, like I said before, I'm not looking at too many other Saints wide receivers. Then Vikings at the Giants. For the Vikings, I'm only starting Justin Jefferson. So what do we know for the Vikings, right? Sam Darnold is going to be the quarterback all season long. The situation with Justin Jefferson, you got a discount on him. He's still the best wide receiver in the league, but I don't think he's going to be putting up the same numbers as was the case with Kirk Cousins. So let's get that out of the way. Also, do you have enough faith in Sam Darnold to support both Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison? I personally don't. So for that reason, I am sitting Jordan Addison. I could see this also being a game where, like, the Vikings, they don't need to air it out all that much. They don't have to do all that many special things. The Giants aren't really that big of a threat. From the Giants' perspective, I'm only starting Malik Neighbors, and that's going to be the case. I'm telling you right now, spoiler alert, all season long. Malik Neighbors, rookie, so there's going to be ups and downs. He plays with Daniel Jones. Again, that's going to be some ups and downs in and of itself, but I think he should be a high-end wide receiver 2 all season long. And then I'm not even bothering with the other Giant wide receivers. That's, the group of Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. We're only going to really have to consider those names if something happens to Malik Neighbors, so hopefully that will not be the case. Afterwards, Patriots at the Bengals. I'm mainly looking at the Bengals side of things here. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. We'll see what happens with Jamar Chase, but I got to believe that the contract situation gets handled before these two teams play. So, I'm treating it as that type of deal. I also think we could see a T. Higgins potential breakout this season. I am interested to keep track of that, but I think both these guys here can be, Chase, obviously the higher upside wide receiver 1 category. T. Higgins, high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1. If Chase for some reason doesn't play, then Higgins, top 10 wide receiver upside. For the Patriots, with a new quarterback, potentially with quarterback question marks, when will May play? Won't he play? I'm sitting Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk. I'm not forcing anything here. Again, you've got rookies, you've got unproven guys. I'm not forcing anything here. I think the Patriots are going to be one of those offenses this year in the NFL that are on the lower side, so I really don't like this game for them whatsoever. Then Steelers at the Falcons. One name for the Steelers, George Pickens. We kind of predicted him as a breakout this season. High-end wide receiver 2 will be in the wide receiver 1 category with the touchdown upside. Russell Wilson, the starter. So I do think that was probably the better situation, the better outcome. We'll see what happens. The Falcons defense doesn't scare me all that much, but I'm still not starting any other Steeler wide receivers. Van Jefferson is a sit. I think it's going to be basically George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth here for the Steelers offensively, and then obviously running backs are going to do their thing. For the Falcons, Drake London, another potential breakout with Kirk Cousins expected to play. Really, really excited to see what we get from Drake London here. But I'm basically only going to be starting Drake London at the wide receiver position just because I think the Falcons have so many pass catchers here, from London to Kyle Pitts to Bijan Robinson. Yes, Darnell Mooney is a solid guy, but I just think those guys are going to be above him on the pecking order. So for that reason, I would be fading Darnell Mooney. Then Texans at the Colts. This is probably one of the tougher games for me to pinpoint from a teammate standpoint with the Texans. all these guys, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, can be starters on other teams. Now, I currently have Stephon Diggs as a sit. I just don't think you're going to have all three of these guys put up solid 10 to 15 plus fantasy points on the week. That's really tough. We saw it with the likes of Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. It's very, very rare for all three of your talented wide receivers to be fantasy relevant on the same week. So here, what are we going to do because of that, right? Nico Collins, I think, is the number one guy, but there's going to be weeks where it's Tank Dell. There's going to be weeks where it's Stephon Diggs. I'm banking on Collins and Tank Dell being the top two guys, but with all those options, I don't see either one or any of these guys being in the wide receiver one category unless there's an injury or unless, like Diggs, when he comes out this season, it's very apparent that he is just washed or that he just doesn't have it. But we'll see. It's a possibility, but I think it's probably going to be a situation where too many mouths to feed. So Collins and Tank Dell are guys in the wide receiver 2 category for me. Obviously, I am more confident in Collins than in Dell. For the Colts, Michael Pittman is the only guy I can confidently start. And again, if you're expecting Michael Pittman from last year, you're going to be a little bit disappointed because Gardner Minshew is no longer there. Anthony Richardson is not the passer that Minshew was. He's going to be looking to run the ball, folks. So Josh Downs, other wide receivers here, I don't have faith in them. I think with Anthony Richardson, you're only going to be able to support one guy. That's Michael Pittman. And I think he's going to be back in the wide receiver 2 conversations. Then Cardinals at the Bills. For Arizona, there's only one name. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. The likes of Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, again, similar to the Giants and Malik Neighbors. Hopefully we never have to talk about them again. Spoiler alert, it's going to be Marvin Harrison every single week. And I think he will be, again, in that high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 type of game script all season long. For the Bills, I've been saying this for a while. I think the best value for the Bills was Curtis Samuel when you were drafting him. And he's a little bit banged up right now, toe injury. I think he's still expected to play. If he does, I like him in PPR formats. I think he can be a sneaky flex play. As far as the other wide receivers, I just don't have too much faith in them for Buffalo. I think this offense is going to go with Dalton Kincaid, with James Cook, and then with one of these wide receivers. Personally, I think it's Samuel. If Samuel doesn't play, I will take a chance on Keon Coleman, but for the time being, Coleman and Khalil Shakir are sits for me. Then Titans at the Bears. For the Titans, I will start Calvin Ridley. I know DeAndre Hopkins was banged up, but he's expected to be on the field week 1. I think just with the age, though, and with the injuries, I'm not going to get too cute here. The Bears have a very good secondary, a very underrated defense. So I'm sitting Hopkins. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be the passing of the guard. But again, I don't love the matchup. I think Ridley is more so a mid-level wide receiver 2. For the Bears, I'm starting DJ Moore. I'm starting Keenan Allen. I think Moore is going to be the number 1 guy. But again, there's going to be inconsistencies here, like we said with the Texans. But it'll be curious because I think Moore has a longer leash. Well, maybe leash is the wrong word, but better upside because Keenan Allen, age, injury history, Rome Odunze, rookie. So I do think DJ Moore is the guy to own here. I would start Keenan Allen over Rome Odunze. I said it before. I think that Odunze is more of a later season play than at the start of the year. But DJ Moore to me is a high-end wide receiver 2. Keenan Allen, low-end wide receiver 2. We're just not going to be seeing the same type of volume that we got accustomed to with him and Justin Herbert. And then Rome Odunze, too many mouths to feed. I'm sitting him. Jags at the Dolphins. I'll start Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis here. Kirk a little bit banged up, so hoping that he suits up, but that is the expectation as of right now. Since joining the Jags, he's been consistent. No Calvin Ridley. I think Gabe Davis will step up. He got paid. Brian Thomas, still a rookie, so I want to take it slow with him. And I think this is going to be a game where the Jags have to air it out to keep pace with the Dolphins. So I like the upside for Kirk and Gabe Davis. I think they can both be behind wide receiver 2s. For the Dolphins, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, I'm starting both of them. They were a little bit banged up, but nothing too serious. Both in the wide receiver 1 category. Obviously, Tyreek Hill being a top 3 wide receiver week in and week out. Then Broncos at the Seahawks. I'm only really interested in DK Metcalf here. I'm not going to lie to you for the Seahawks. Lockett, the age, a little bit banged up. Jackson Smith and Jigba, disappointing season last year. And now, he's still in that trio of these guys. So I think there's just not going to be enough volume between Lockett and Jigba. Metcalf is the guy that stands out, so I have him as a high-end wide receiver too. Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba as sits. And then I'm also sitting all the Denver wide receivers. Again, it's like Cortland Sutton and then others. So you could say Cortland Sutton just because he's the best guy overall. You start him because of that. But again, I don't like the environment here in Seattle. I don't like the quarterback situation, rookie quarterback for Denver. So I just don't like the Broncos all that much offensively this year. Then Raiders at the Chargers. I'll start Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. Now, the good news with the Raiders, Minshew is going to be starting, so I think that will help a lot here. But we'll see how much the fall-off is with Devontae Adams, where all the people's kind of fears correct in that he's another year older, that there's quarterback uncertainty, that injury history, system usage, were all those things correct? Or, did we just sleep on Devontae Adams? I think it's going to be somewhere in between. I have him as a low-end wide receiver 1 for the week. I would start Jacoby Myers, though. Like, he was utilized last year, and I don't think that's going to go away. I think Gardner Minshew can provide more consistency for both of these guys, so that's something to keep an eye out for. Then for the Chargers, I trust Josh Palmer a lot more than I do Ladd McConkey, but I would also give McConkey a shot. The Raiders don't scare me too much, and I think the Chargers at some point are going to have to air it out. I think Palmer and McConkey can both be mid-level wide receiver 2s on the week. Adams, low-end wide receiver 1. Myers, again, low to mid-level wide receiver 2. Then Cowboys at the Browns. Only one guy here, a piece that I want to start. CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys. All that contract stuff got sorted out, so we're good there. Returns to top 3 wide receiver. And then Brendan Cooks, with the age, being banged up, I'm not going to force a start with him. Browns have a good defense, so no thank you. For the Browns, Amari Cooper, old but reliable. I think that it really depends what Deshaun Watson we get, so hopefully Cooper can be a solid high-end wide receiver 2 all season long. That's kind of what I'm looking for here. But then afterwards, because of the issues we've seen from Deshaun Watson, I'm not forcing Jerry Jeudy. I'm not forcing Elijah Moore. I think it's going to be flipping a coin between the two of them. I probably do give the edge to Jerry Jeudy, but between Cooper and Njoku and Jerome Ford, I think there's a lot of options here, so I'm only looking at Amari Cooper. Then Commanders at the Bucks. I'm really excited about the upside for Terry McLaurin with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. I think this can finally be the breakout year, where he becomes a wide receiver 1. Maybe not the best start versus the Bucks, but be patient. So I think he's probably more so a wide receiver 2, but again, don't panic if he doesn't deliver. And then there's no other wide receivers on that Washington roster, really. Like Noah Brown was an addition. I'm not too excited about him. I'm sitting him. For the Bucks, I will start Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. To me, like it was last year, Evans is a standard suited guy. Godwin more of a PPR guy. Overall, Evans is the better play. He can be a wide receiver 1 a little bit easier than Godwin. But I do think if you're going into this expecting Mike Evans of last year, you will be disappointed. I think he's going to be more touchdown dependent, and I don't think he's going to be as big of kind of a bargain as he was last year. So I think both these guys probably realistically in the wide receiver 2 conversation. Rams at the Lions. Excited about this one. Easily starting Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I've said it all season long. I think Cooper Kupp can be the better wide receiver compared to Puka Nacua. Nacua was also banged up. I have both these guys as mid to high-end wide receiver 1s on the week. For the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Lions are loaded offensively, but it's Amon-Ra at the wide receiver position. Jameson Williams hasn't proven anything yet. I have him as a sit. Like, it's Amon-Ra, it's Jahmyr Gibbs, it's Sam Laporta. So that doesn't leave too much afterwards, but Amon-Ra should be a borderline top 5 wide receiver on the week. Then Jets at the 49ers. I'm starting Garrett Wilson. I'm very bullish on Garrett Wilson. I was last year as well. Unfortunately, Rodgers gets hurt. But with him back now, I like Wilson to potentially have that breakout this year. A tough matchup in the first week, but I do think I think he will be fed the football, and I think he can be right around a top 10, top 12 wide receiver on the week. For the 49ers, Brendan Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. I think both these guys are probably in the high-end wide receiver 2 conversation week in and week out. The problem is you got too many other guys there. You got McCaffrey, you've got George Kittle. So there's going to be inconsistencies from time to time. I'm sitting Mike Williams for the Jets. I just think coming off the injury, age, I think it's going to be Garrett Wilson. I think it's going to be Breece Hall, Mike Williams from time to time. But right now, maybe at the start of the season, not the best time. So, again, Wilson, Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. But with that, we wrap up our Week 1 fantasy football wide receiver starts and sits for every single matchup. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, did you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.